No one teaches us how to be satisfied. From the moment we are born, the world quietly teaches us to reach for more. A better education, a better career, a better home, a better future. We celebrate ambition. We admire success. We believe that every step forward will bring us closer to happiness. And in many ways, it has. Human civilization has accomplished extraordinary things because people refuse to stop reaching for something better. Yet hidden beneath all of that progress is a question that few of us ever stop to ask. If every generation has more comfort, more technology, and more opportunity than the one before it, why do so many people still feel as though something is missing? Why does yesterday's dream become today's routine? Why does today's success become tomorrow's expectation? And why does every finish line seem to create another race? Perhaps the greatest mystery is not why human beings always want more. Perhaps the real mystery is why more never feels like enough. This question is older than modern psychology, older than neuroscience, older than science itself. More than 2,500 years ago, one man abandoned a life that most people could only dream of, not because he hated wealth, nor because he rejected the world, but because he wanted to understand a single question. Why does the human mind never seem to rest? His search would become one of history's greatest explorations of human happiness. Today, modern psychology is beginning to uncover answers that sound surprisingly familiar. This is not a story about religion. It is a story about the human mind, about desire, about happiness, and about the invisible force that quietly shapes nearly every decision we make. This is the story of why we are never satisfied. Every morning, before we even leave our homes, the race has already begun. Without thinking, we reach for our phones. A quick look at the news, a message from a friend, a photo from someone's vacation, a promotion announced on social media, a new car, a new house, another milestone. Within minutes of waking up, our minds are already measuring, not against who we were yesterday, but against someone else today. We rarely notice it happening. Comparison has become so deeply woven into modern life that it feels completely normal. We tell ourselves we simply want a better life, a better income, a healthier body, a more successful career. There is nothing wrong with these goals. In fact, ambition has always been one of the greatest driving forces behind human progress. It inspires discovery, it creates innovation, it pushes civilizations forward. But somewhere along the way, something changes. The goal that once filled us with excitement slowly becomes ordinary. The phone we couldn't wait to buy becomes just another device. The job we dreamed about becomes another source of stress. The salary we once believed would solve our problems becomes our new normal. Almost without realizing it, our expectations quietly rise. The finish line moves, and we begin running again. Many people spend their entire lives believing the answer is simply to run faster, earn more, own more, achieve more, become more. Yet no matter how much they accomplish, the feeling never seems to last. For a brief moment, there is excitement. Then comes familiarity. And after familiarity comes another desire. It is a cycle so common that most of us mistake it for life itself. Perhaps the question is not whether we are chasing something. Every human being is. Perhaps the more important question is this: why does every achievement create another desire instead of lasting contentment? Why does satisfaction disappear so quickly? Why does the human mind always seem to look beyond what it already has? For centuries, people searched for answers in wealth. Others searched in power. Some searched in love. Others devoted themselves to fame, knowledge, or success. Yet the same question continued to follow them. Perhaps the problem was never the things they were chasing. Perhaps the answer lies in the way the human mind experiences them. Imagine receiving everything you have ever wanted, the career you dreamed of, the salary you worked for, the house you promised yourself you would one day own. For a moment, life feels complete. The excitement is real. The joy is undeniable. Yet something unexpected begins to happen. Not after years. Sometimes after only a few weeks. The extraordinary slowly becomes ordinary. The house no longer feels new. The promotion becomes another responsibility. The salary that once seemed life-changing quietly becomes your normal income. Nothing has been taken away. Your life is objectively better than it was before. Yet the feeling that once filled your heart begins to fade. Why? Modern psychology has spent decades searching for an answer. Researchers noticed a remarkable pattern. People who won the lottery experienced a dramatic increase in happiness. People who achieved long-awaited promotions felt deeply fulfilled. People who finally bought the home they had dreamed about described overwhelming joy. But when researchers returned months later, something surprising had happened. Most had drifted back toward their previous level of happiness, not because they had become ungrateful, not because their achievements had lost value, but because the human mind had quietly adapted. Psychologists call this phenomenon hedonic adaptation, the ability of the brain to become familiar with almost any positive change. What once felt extraordinary slowly becomes expected. The new becomes normal. And once something becomes normal, the mind begins searching again. Not because it is broken, but because this is how it evolved. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors survived by never becoming completely satisfied. If finding food had been enough forever, they would have stopped searching. If building one shelter had felt permanently fulfilling, they might never have looked for safer ground. If one success had erased every future desire, human progress might have stopped long ago. The restless mind was not a mistake, it was an advantage. The instinct to seek something better helped our species survive. It encouraged exploration, innovation, adaptation, and ultimately, civilization itself. The same mind that once protected us now lives in a completely different world. Food is no longer scarce for many people. Shelter is no longer our greatest daily concern. Yet the ancient survival system remains. It continues asking the same question it has asked for thousands of generations. What comes next? Today's world answers that question faster than ever before. Every advertisement whispers that happiness is one purchase away. Every notification promises something new. Every scroll reveals another life that appears more exciting than our own. Without realizing it, we rarely compare ourselves with who we were yesterday. We compare ourselves with millions of carefully edited moments from strangers around the world. For most of human history, comparison ended at the edge of a village. Today, comparison never sleeps. The result is not simply that we want more. The result is that enough becomes almost impossible to recognize. The mind keeps moving the finish line, not because it wants to make us suffer, but because it was never designed to stop searching. The question, then, is no longer why desire exists. The real question is whether we can learn to live wisely with a mind that always asks for more. Long before laboratories, brain scans, or psychology textbooks, there was a man who chose to study the one thing every human being carries: the mind. He did not begin with theories. He did not begin with beliefs. He began with observation. For years, he watched people as they celebrated success, mourned loss, fell in love, grew old, and struggled to hold on to what could never stay the same. He noticed something that seemed almost invisible. People suffered not only because life was difficult, They suffered because they expected life to remain the way they wanted it to be. When happiness arrived, they feared losing it. When success arrived, they worried it would not last. When they loved someone, they wished time would stop. But time never stopped. Children grew older. Parents grew weaker. Friends moved away. Bodies changed. Seasons passed. Nothing remained exactly as it had been. Yet the human mind kept asking reality to stay still. Perhaps this was the beginning of suffering, not pain itself. Pain is part of life. Every person will experience illness, loss, failure, and death. No wisdom can erase these experiences. But there is another kind of suffering, the suffering that comes from resisting what cannot be controlled. Imagine holding water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. The problem is not the water. The problem is believing that closing your hand tighter will keep it forever. The same is true for success, for youth, for relationships, for wealth, for reputation. The harder we try to make temporary things last forever, the more exhausted the mind becomes. This was not a message of pessimism. It was an invitation to see reality more clearly. The question was never, how can I stop life from changing? The question became, what happens when I stop demanding that life never change? This simple shift would eventually become one of the most influential ideas in human history. It was not asking people to give up ambition. It was not asking people to reject happiness. It was asking a far deeper question. Can happiness exist without depending on everything remaining exactly the way we want? For centuries, this insight would become the foundation of Buddhist philosophy. Today, many psychologists describe a remarkably similar pattern. The more we resist reality, the more emotional suffering grows. Acceptance does not erase pain, but resistance often multiplies it. More than 2,000 years apart, two different paths arrived at a surprisingly similar truth. The restless mind is not our enemy, but misunderstanding it can quietly shape an entire lifetime. For centuries, people believed that suffering was simply a part of life. Some blamed fate. Others blamed society. Many searched for someone or something to blame. But after years of observing the human mind, one man arrived at a very different conclusion. He believed that before we could solve suffering, we first had to understand it. His insight later became known as the Four Noble Truths. Despite the name, they are not four commands. They are four observations about how the human mind works. The first observation is surprisingly simple. Life will always contain difficulty. No matter who we are, there will be illness, loss, disappointment, uncertainty, and change. This was never a message of hopelessness. It was a reminder that pain is part of being human. The second observation goes much deeper. Pain alone is not what keeps us suffering. Much of our suffering begins when the mind insists that reality should be different from what it is. We cling to pleasant moments, hoping they will never end. We resist unpleasant moments, wishing they had never happened. The mind is constantly negotiating with reality, and reality never signs the agreement. The third observation offers something remarkable. If suffering is created by the way the mind relates to experience, then suffering can also be reduced by changing that relationship, not by escaping life, not by giving up our dreams, but by seeing our thoughts, our desires, and our fears more clearly. The fourth observation is not a destination, it is a practice, a way of living that develops wisdom, attention, kindness, and balance. It does not promise a perfect life. It offers a different way of meeting an imperfect one. More than 2,000 years later, psychologists, neuroscientists, and researchers continue to explore many of these same ideas. Mindfulness, acceptance, emotional regulation, cognitive flexibility. Different words, different methods, yet all pointing toward a similar understanding. The greatest change does not always begin by changing the world around us. Sometimes it begins by understanding the mind that experiences it.